But it was
So,
too late
anyway-
to help Rose much.
Anyway, I really am not sure whether it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, because this is the reason I hesitate to say
I
this.
see.
We were home for a while, and I wouldn't have been home that long at Thanksgiving. It must have been Christmas
Must have been.
vacation, because Rose became very, very ill. And the folks called the doctor out again, and he came out, and she was very ill. And the doctor told, he gave some sort of medicine, and he told the folks, now, don't call me again, because there's nothing more I can do for her. And she's very likely not to live through this if she has a coughing spell. So a rancher, Mr. Porch, Ad Porch, who lived down 12 miles away.
Leonard said it was George Porch.
No, he was mistaken.
wrong, yeah. He was wrong.
Ad Porch heard about Rosewoods, JM's, they called my father JM, little girl that was very sick with diphtheria. So he said, I tell you, and how the doctor had given up on her. He said, I am going to tell them what the old Missouri remedy was for diphtheria. So by then there was a big snowstorm, but he got on his horse and he rode 12 miles, came to our house, the day school, and he told my folks what the old Missouri remedy was for diphtheria. He says when she has a choking spell, you have a sheet handy. You make a tent over her with this sheet. You have a bucket or some kind of a utensil with some unslacked lime in it.
And hot water.
And have water, not hot.
It wasn't hot.
Oh, well, it becomes hot.
Yeah, it foams up, yeah,
Yes,
sure.
just some
Yeah.
water handy. But you must be very careful. If she has this choking spell, you put water in this pan with an unslacked lime in it and hold it under the tent so she breathes this. Just
And you
not
get
too
under,
much.
you get underweathered,
No,
wasn't
he
it?
didn't
She
tell
didn't.
that.
Oh, well, Leonard was telling me these things.
she did it. Mother did
Oh,
that.
she did. He didn't tell her to do that.
I don't know
Oh.
whether he
Not
did or
too
not.
much of a
But he says
Choke her to death, I
don't
suppose.
hold it there too long because you can burn her throat.
Sure, well, it'd be very caustic,
He may
certainly.
have said, get under it with her, I don't know. But sure enough, Mother prepared, and I was there when she had her choking spell. Her face was purple, and Mother quickly followed directions, and she got under the tent too, to be sure not to hold it in too long, and it pulled her through. She kept her.
She choked up the phlegm, wasn't it? Didn't that cut the phlegm and then she got the
Right.
thing out? Now, Mother, maybe you remember this too. Well, that happened. There was unslacked lime on the premises because they were building the doctor's cottage, and it was so fortunate that this unslacked lime was at hand because it
That
would
was
have
for
been...
mortar. On
Is that what they
yeah, sure,
used?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They
mix
used it on the
cement,
mortar,
yeah.
and that
Almost providential, wasn't it?
Certainly,
Right.
yeah.
And she went to sleep, Mother said, and slept then without coughing, and that was the turning point.
That was it.
That was the
Crisis was
turning
over.
point.
Just once, did she just have that slack line?
That once.
Fumes once, huh?
That
Yeah.
once, she was able to cough up,
Yeah.
you see, there's the
Got
danger.
rid of that.
They strangle on that, when the sack
Yeah.
breaks,
Yeah.
they sang, well, so, you see, this really saved her life, and to think of that, this rancher that came all that distance in a snowstorm to bring the message to the
Right.
folks of
She would have died.
this old folk remedy.
Now let me ask you about this that Mother told me about. When I was about 1.5 years old, I had summer complaint, and they thought for a day or so that I was practically dead. They couldn't
This
find
was the first summer.
the
We were there.
the heartbeats and all, and I was just lying there. And then maybe that was George Porch. Somebody told Mother to boil the lining of a gizzard, chicken gizzard, and they either brought a chicken for her to do it. 'cause
lining of the chicken.
The lining of the chicken gizzard,
gizzard.
and make a broth.
I
Because
doubt it was George Porch, because I don't think we knew George
Maybe
Porch.
not.
He lived up north
Yeah,
of
you know,
Paducah.
Yeah, well, somebody told Mother that, and I hadn't been able to keep anything on my stomach. But this gave, you see, there was no fat in it, and this did something. And I,
Some kind of a chemical or enzyme in the
I
gizzard.
suppose.
just something, and I can even remember, as little as I was, my memory goes back a lot, that my first meal when I came to, finally, was a soft boiled egg. And ever since then, I have always, that's my favorite way to eat an egg, is a soft boiled egg. And I started eating, I guess I'd gotten awfully thin. I don't know what summer complaint was.
That's what I was
but it
just gonna ask you, what
Do
was
you
some of
know?
the complaint?
Diarrhea.
Just a
Oh, I
diarrhea.
see.
It was a stomach, what we would call now stomach flu.
I see, yeah,
But see those,
So that does, first
Yeah.
thing, when he comes down,
yeah.
stomach flu or some eggs.
the egg, you see,
Sure.
first was this, but
Tea and toast.
it shows that some of those old remedies had a very good foundation. Well, we still haven't gotten Ethel through high school. She's just 1 year.
Yeah.
Well, I might add that I did, you see, I did have, I might say, a boyfriend in a way. I went to the movies, Burl and I, double dated, John Sears, and you see, I can, Otto Sharon.
Otto share.
And we went to the movies. Well, I might add this, that by this time I was staying with the East Houses, and after the show was over, we went down to Burl's house. I had not, Mrs. Easthouse knew I had gone to the show, and we had gone with these boys, high school boys, to the show. But I had not said, or didn't plan, to do anything but come home after the show was over. But after we got out of the show, Burl says, why don't we just all go down to my house and we'll just sing some songs? And Otto played the piano. That's the one I had gone with very well. And we'll go down there and Otto can play the piano and we'll sing some songs. That was kind of the in thing with
Sure,
young people then.
sure.
We'd gather around the piano and play popular songs. So we went down there and did this. And for an hour, I suppose, maybe we had some candy or popcorn or something. And then Otto took me back up home, or the East Houses. Well, it was late. I suppose around 11, possibly even
Sure.
12 o'clock.
Yeah,
We went in, and everybody had gone to bed. And Mrs. Easthouse says, well, you weren't here, so my sister's here visiting, and I put her in your bed with Frank Ferguson, F-R-A-N-C, was her sister, by the way. And
I wondered about that.
Yes,
and we had a room together. But she says, I put my sister in there with her, and you'll have to sleep in the crib here,
Punishment.
in the little boy's bed. I put him on the floor, and you can sleep in his crib. Of course, she did it purposely, I suppose. So I said, well, I think it's too short. Well, it's too bad, but it's the
Yeah.
only bed left, and this is where you have to sleep. So I obediently slept in the crib
Especially.
with my all doubled up. That was a horrible experience. I couldn't stretch out. And that was my punishment, I suppose, for, she said, wanted to know where I had been. And I said, well, I told her where we'd been. Anyway, then it happened that my father had come to Kadoka. And he happened to stop in the drugstore that fall. And he said something he didn't know. Well, it was, I'd gone to the East Houses, that's right, after Christmas, was staying there. And it was after Christmas that he had come, and he didn't know just where East Houses lived. he wanted to see me. So he was in the drugstore, and he says, I'm trying to find the East Houses. My daughter Ethel is staying there and going to school here, and I want to talk with her. So a couple of boys were there, and they jumped up. Oh, we'll show you where she lives.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Mhm. That went over big with Daddy up at.
Yeah, that went over big. So right then, I suppose, was when Dad thought, well,
We get this kid back on the reservation.
We're gonna change things here. So anyway, of course, I finished out the year. That summer, Otto came out to Wambalee to see me. And I had a horse, and we found a horse for him. And we decided, I said, have you ever seen the Badlands? And he said, well, Leonard was put on notice to be my chaperone.
See.
See, he was to tag along wherever we went. And and I said, we'll go down, would you like to take a ride down in Buckle Canyon, see the Badlands? Well, yes, that'd be fine. So we rode down Buckle Canyon. And Leonard came along on his horse. We all three of us went down for a ride. Well, he stayed a couple of days, and anyway, the folks decided. They had a talk with me one day, and they said, Dad said, well, now I'll tell you, Ethel, you have to be away from home anyway. You might just as well go to a real good school. Instead of going to Kadoka, he said, I think we'll send you up to Spearfish Normal.
Now, what, you were a junior?
A junior, nice.
No,
Oh, what
I
was
had
it?
gone to school 1 year in Kadoka.
1 year.
Because they have 4 years of high school work there at
Oh,
the
yeah.
normals at that time, and 2 years above high school.
Oh, yeah.
And then you came out a teacher.
Like my mom.
Well,
Yeah. Mhm.
She went to normal school in
oh
Austin.
yes, that's right. Also, in South Dakota, if you could pass a teacher's examination, regardless of how much you'd been to high school, why, if you could pass the examination, you could teach school if you were 18 years old. So, they said, well, then how would you like that? And of course, as usual, I said, well, that'd be
Sure.
fine, that'd be okay. Although I kind of
Didn't want to leave
didn't
your
want it
friends.
because I'd made friends in Kadoka. But then my father took me over to the schoolhouse one day, and we had a long talk. Now, Ethel, he said, you know, the important thing right now is to get your education. And too many times a young girl will get interested in other things, and she'll forget that she needs to get her education. So I want you to promise me one thing, that until you are, I forgot what age he said, 18 or something like that. I want you not to go with boys. He said, you just pay attention, and have your friends, but don't
Get involved. Huh?
don't get involved with boys. Because if you do, you will forget about the principal thing you're going there for. Well, of course, I promised.
You promised.
And so then he had written to the Spearfish Normal, to the president, and told that his daughter was coming there, and they had carried on correspondence. So I was to take, and by the way, I said goodbye to my folks when school time came there in Wambalee, and I rode the mail, old Blake Fisk and his team of mules in a wagon, down Buckle Canyon, crossed the creek 32 times, and then White River, and then 6 miles on in the Badlands to Wheata, the place where I would take the train. I took the train at Wheata, went to when we got to Interior, the train went next and stopped at Interior. At Interior, a sister and 2 brothers got on the train, the Johnsons. Elvira Johnson and her 2 brothers Darrell Johnson, and they called him Buster. And they all played musical instruments. They had their musical instruments with them, guitars and things, and they were three,
Then to all that.
and they were, I thought, oh, how wonderful, just to think if you could do things like that, and they felt so, and I was a little afraid and scared. Anyway, we went, and then you see, at that time, we rode the train to Rapid City, stayed all night in Rapid City. The next morning at 10 o'clock, we took another railroad branch to Whitewood, South Dakota. At Whitewood, we got off and took what was called the Whitewood Stage. It was just a big touring car to Spearfish. And then we were there. They took us up to the dormitory. I had been
Did the
at
Johnsons go
arrangements.
up there too, or where were they?
That first night, they didn't have, I guess we hadn't room in the dormitory, that's right. Because they let us off at another house, and the four of us stayed there at that house, and the next day we went up to the school and got our dormitory rooms, enrolled and all that sort of thing. Well, that was the last year of World War I, and everybody was coming down with the influenza, which so many people died of. And it got so bad that they closed the school down about Thanksgiving time. And everybody went home. So I got home before Thanksgiving. Now,
Our family got
you
the
see,
flu, didn't
this
they?
is going to be too long to finish
That-
this up.
Why are you tiring?
No, but
Well,
you must be tired.
we are not. We are
You
all,
ran around with flu masks.
we're
on.
all ears, and
We went
Oh.
home and we,
Oh, masks, oh, yes,
yeah.
yeah.
with masks on.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
all the kids in school wore flu masks.
I see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Cover their nose and their mouth and hide behind their ears. So, it was
I
funny.
remember the saying, they opened the window and influenza. That was a saying that I remember
Oh,
Mother
is that
saying.
right?
Now I'm beginning to
What was it
remember.
she said?
They opened the window and influenza.
That sounds like a mother original.
It might have been.
She
She
was
was
a wit
very
with
witty.
words.
No
Call
kidding.
it Spanish
Influenza was there.
Spanish, yeah.
Influenza.
Now,
Spanish influenza.
what do you remember about our family and the flu? Because I heard
Everybody
Mother
came
tell.
down with the flu but mother.
Flu or influenza?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
think
didn't
Leonard.
really get the flu.
Well, now you see Leonard has, and
I know.
Leonard told me
That's just a sharp.
that he got over it first. He was very ill, or else he got it later, but he was milking the cows and taking care of the family after Mother got it. And then he was also going to Pomeroy's, milking their cows, because they all had, and so my brother Leonard, he must have been about 15 then, he was the nurse. And Mother said
14 or 15.
she was one of the later ones to get, evidently Leonard had it and got over it. And then Mother finally got down, and somebody gave her this new magic medication,
Oh, gee.
aspirin.
Aspirin.
And she went to bed so sick, and she took aspirin, a couple of doses, and it was just like we think now of the antibiotics. This was wonderful. So she was able to get up and help Leonard because of the, do you remember her telling about
No, I
this
don't
aspirin?
remember that.
Now you see, now a few of my
This is what I
memories
say,
are coming
bring
back.
this in.
Yes. And none of us died, but many of the Indians died.
Whole families were wiped out.
Oh,
Yes, and you see, they lived in the log huts and the tents. And I think Leonard said that our mother, that somebody went in to take food to them, and they found 2 dead bodies, and they asked the one surviving and said, why don't you bury? And they said, we're waiting for the rest to die and have one burial.
Wonder. Oh, my goodness.
1917 or 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was terrible.
And
There
that-
were
and
millions
it
of
wiped
people
out-
throughout the world
it
died.
wiped-
Yeah, it went
wiped
all over
out.
the world, didn't
That's
it? Yeah.
right. I think it must have been Dad that didn't get it then. One of the family didn't get it,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was Dad.
Maybe it
I
was.
really didn't get it of course, the folks had Dr. Hennings from Kadoka come out.
And aspirin, too. Then probably
Yes.
that was the
That was
introduction
it.
of aspirin then, to help your symptoms.
A lot of soldiers got it too.
Oh, yes.
The
All I
treatment
had.
was calomel, a course of calomel, wasn't it?
Calomel.
I was
And
going to
followed-
tell about
Yeah, tell
this.
about that, Ethel.
The standard treatment was a course of calomel, followed by a big dose of castor oil.
Or salts.
My brother, who was a year and a half older than I, and the one that
Lied about his age
That,
in the army.
he did things to gain his point, even if he had to do it surreptitiously. So he was in bed, very sick with the flu, and this was before Mother came down with it, yes. So she was administering the calomel treatment to Nicholas. And she would take the calomel into him, little white pills, and the water. And he would say, I can't take this while you're looking at me.
Oh,
She
jeez.
would turn around and go out, and he would take his calomel.
Yes,
Cold.
sure.
So then came the castor oil,
You couldn't take that.
and she brought that in. Well, she had it in a tablespoon. Oh, no, let me. No, I'm going to give you this myself, because she thought he might not take this.
They had to get
So-
rid of that calomel out of the system. Because it was kind of a
So she
poison.
gave him the big dose of castor oil. Well, he got over the flu. And when he was all over the flu, out on his own again, she cleaned up the room. She found all the calomel pills down under the bed.
Under the
Well,
bed.
then it was after that that he ran away and enlisted in the army. And
So
after this-
anyway, to finish up a little about the flu, I didn't come down with the flu, but my face began to swell up. I had a little pimple right up here at the edge of my hair. And when the doctor was out, looking at everybody, I was lying on the couch in the dining room while Dad had fixed some, Mother must have gotten sick then by that time.
Yeah, there was something.
And because she wasn't there, Dad had fixed coffee, a little lunch for him before he went back. And they were carrying on a conversation. I was lying there with my face all swelled up. He looked at it. Oh yes, Dad says, now there's something wrong with Ethel. She doesn't seem to be sick, but she's got an infection or something. He looked at it. And he said, well, I'll tell you, she has erysipelas. Well, Dad says, what's that? Well, he says that's where the infection, she's probably gotten a flu germ into this little pimple there, and it has started up a blood poisoning. And he told him what to do for it, and so on. And Dad says they went on carrying on the conversation. And Dad, I heard him say to him, well, how serious is that? He said, oh, it can be serious if it gets up into the scalp.
The brain.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that so?
sure.
Yes, it can. He says, when I was in college, he said, my roommate had it. It got up into his scalp. Dad said, did he pull through? Oh, no. He said, he died.
And you heard
I
this.
heard all that.
Heard all this.
But anyway, I got over it. The treatment, I think they put Denver mud. They put
Denver mud.
pack of Denver mud on it.
It was a,
That was what they used then. It was
What is Denver
an ointment that has medication in it that is a poultice type.
I
Sure.
can remember it was
And
kind
they
of
put that
a
on
thick
it so to
salve.
draw out the
Sure.
poison.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I survived that. And I don't remember too much about the rest of that.
Did you go back then up to school
Yes,
after
they
that?
opened up to school again and went back and finished up until Christmas time. Then I came home at Christmas and went back again and finished up the year. Of course, I hadn't really followed my promise.
Not seeing any boys.
Yeah, I had gone with a bunch of girls, and we went hiked up for breakfast to top of Lookout Mountain. And somewhere or another, my father found out. I think he kept in close touch with this
somebody?
president of the college,
Sure.
and he found out. So he I had decided I'd go to summer school and try and get more of my education in. But in the meantime, Dad had written, well, Ethel, he says, you know, I've just been thinking, we're kind of hard up for money. Why don't you get busy, study up, and take the teacher's examinations. You'll be 18 in August. And take the teacher's examination, and maybe you can teach, you pass it, get a certificate, and teach school for a year or so. Then you can go back to school.
Go home.
Well, as usual, well, okay, that's what I'll do. So I did. I went to, I studied up, got a bunch of teachers' questions and old examinations and studied them. Took the teacher's examination. When they gave it there in the June sometime. And I passed. So I got a second grade certificate. And so
That's right, that's the way they
went
gave
home.
them, didn't they?
Yes.
They gave me, because I
That's
got my
right.
mother's.
Oh, is
It's
that
different,
right?
Yes.
Yes.
I got all the certificates.
Yes. Well, I felt pretty good about it. I didn't, I think I wrote out some applications and sent them out different places. Didn't really get any replies, I don't think. But I went home then for the rest of the summer. And it happened that there was some young fellows there working on some government work, building roads, or I think they were working on the road between Wambley and Kadoka by that time, trying to put in a decent road. And this Alva Griswold was one of the young fellows, and Mother, besides all of her other work, would often furnish a room or meals to people who were there and needed a place to stay to eat. So a couple of these fellows were staying at our house and eating their meals there, and this Alva Griswold was one of them. And we'd play croquet in the evening, and Mother would get out and play with us. So he found out that I had a teacher's certificate. He says, say, you know, in our school out north of Belvedere, he said, I don't think we have any teacher out there yet. He says, why don't you apply for that school? So I did. And he told me who to write to whom to write. And I was hired for the school.
Were you nervous about the idea of teaching?
I don't think
Maybe
I
not
really
too much.
was. I've been associated with it. When Dad would need somebody, he'd have to go and do something, he'd have me come over to the day school and fill
I
in
see.
for him. And no, I wasn't
It was
really
sort of in
nervous
the
about
blood
it.
anyhow, I think, the
So,
teaching.
time came, Mother went with me to Kadoka. And it happened that one of the members of the school board had made arrangements to meet him in Kadoka, and he would take me out to the school. It was, yes, the Mr. Kemper was going to meet me. He was on the school board. And he said, well, he said, you'll be staying with us. And boarding there. Well, I thought, fine, okay. So I went home with him, and they had a son who was not too bright. We got out of I think he had a car, and this son came ambling up from the barnyard, and he says, I want you to meet our new school teacher. So I shook hands with him, and he had one of these limp, remember that? And anyway, I had two of their girls in school. That first night, she put me in this one room on a straw mattress and a little bit of a kerosene lamp, just a real small one, that had a little tiny blaze on it, up on the dresser. And I went to bed. And after I got to bed, oh, couldn't understand what was the matter. A terrible time. I felt like, oh gee, it feels like something crawling on me. So I got up and I lit the light. Here, bed bugs were crawling
my
all directions. They had been, it was just alive
The
with
straw
bed
mattress
bugs.
was full.
Oh, I thought, what am I going to do? Here, this Mr. Kemper's on the school board. What can I do? So the next morning, I told Mrs. Kemper, I said, you know, I just wondered, and there seemed to be some bed bugs in that bed. And, oh yes, she says, I've got to treat that bed. I'll take care of that. Well, so I stayed, put up with it, went to school. About 2 weeks, after I'd been there 2 weeks, Maud Bradley, who lived down the creek several miles, came up. Kempers had all gone to town. Wanted to know if I wanted to go to town with them. I said, no, I believe I'll just stay here. So Maud came to visit me. She was about 16. And she says, you know, I guess I confided in her about it. I didn't know what to do. She says, well,